back to Hardball. Well, back in February, the Washington Post ran a big story that the Clinton Foundation was taking money from foreign governments while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. It sparked a wave of press coverage and attacks from Clinton's critics who raised concerns about conflicts of interest. Now, just 10 days into Clinton's presidential run, the wave has become a flood. And here we go. The scrutiny over the Clintons' financial dealings, their speaking fees, government work, charity organization work, and private connections has now hit every major news organization in America. The mainstream media is on it. The front page of the Washington Post reports today that, quote, Bill Clinton was paid at least $26 million in speaking fees by companies and organizations that are also major donors to his foundation. The New York Times ran a massive story today on how cash flowed to the Clinton Foundation during Secretary Clinton's tenure from the Russians while they were seeking U.S. approval on a sensitive deal to control large swaths of U.S. uranium deposits, approval that they won. The Times reports that those contributions were not publicly disclosed by the Clintons, despite an agreement Mrs. Clinton had struck with the Obama White House to publicly identify all donors. Then there's this. Reuters reports today also that Hillary Clinton's family charities are refiling at least 5 annual tax returns after a Reuters review found errors in how they reported donations from governments. That means overseas governments. In all instances, Clinton's camp has denied any wrongdoing, and late today they put out a lengthy response to the New York Times story, noting that Secretary Clinton was not directly involved, actually, in the review process on that uranium deal. Let's dive right in here. Stephanie Shryock is president of the pro-Hillary group. Well, they are pro-Hillary. Emily's List. Michael Steele was RNC chair, of course. And Jonathan Allen's the chief political correspondent at Vox, V-O-X, that is. Stephanie, I'm going to give you the first swat at this. I mean, there's a lot of things out there. There's money in all different cases, big speaking fees, of course. The Clinton Foundation has been enormously successful in raising money all around the world. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. Bill Clinton was former president, and Hillary Clinton may well be the next president. Where do you see in this reasonable, well, questions about possible conflict of interest and responsibilities? Your thoughts?
Well, what I really see in this is a very clear orchestrated Republican strategy. When you don't have much to offer in policies that the voters want, you attack your likely opponent. And they know they've got to tear her down. And that is precisely what we're seeing. We're seeing it in this book that has been written by a discredited author that is in media outlet after media outlet being discredited piece by piece. And this is just the beginning, Chris. We're going to see a lot of these attacks because this is what the Republicans have right now as a strategy.
If you can imagine a Republican running an international global organization, a foundation to help little countries with big problems, and also was the guy running it was making a lot of money in speaking fees from the donors, would you see conflict there if it were Republicans doing the same thing?
Well, the guy that you're talking about is the former president of the United States, right, who has, an incredibly powerful story to tell. And the foundation, frankly, has done immense and incredible work around the globe, particularly right, when you're talking about empowering women and girls, as well as working to eradicate HIV/AIDS. So this is a foundation that has done
I believe in the
really important work.
I think it's great. My son worked for them overseas in Rwanda on AIDS. I think it's a great cause. But let me ask you this. I've got to get a little counter here. It's my job, and I don't mind doing it, Stephanie, and that is this. I heard a roar of disapproval when Ronald Reagan took that $2 million from the Japanese after he left office because people said he was kind to them in trade negotiations. And I don't know if your voice was there, but a lot of my friends' voices were loud, and I just wondered whether we're cutting this fairly. Your thoughts, and then I'll get back to the bad guys here.
Well, I think we've...
What did you think about Reagan grabbing... The
precedent's been set. You just mentioned another president. I mean, this is often presidents of the United States have great stories to tell, and they get speaking fees for doing it. What President Clinton has done is dedicated his time in helping people around the world.
Have you ever heard of anybody paying $2 million to hear a good story? $2 million, maybe $2 million ducks, but $2 million to hear, that's a hell of a story. I mean, Mark Twain, I don't think I would have gotten $2 million. Anyway, let me go back to you, Jonathan, before we go to the Republican. Why is these big papers, the Post and Times, is it all because that conservative guy wrote that book that we still haven't read yet?
No, of course not. This story
isn't connected.
This story has been, it's connected in that he's working with some of those big newspapers on the particular set of things that he did research on. The story about the foundation has been unfolding for a long time. There are a couple of stories that are interesting storylines.
What's potentially corrupt?
So what's potentially corrupt is that there are a number of corporations and individuals with business before the U.S. government while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, and if she becomes president, who have given tons of money to the Clinton Foundation. And by the way, they can give a lot more to the foundation than they can give in hard money to a presidential campaign.
Right. Why do they give money?
For access. For access and in hopes of favor. That does not mean that those favors were done. What we haven't seen here is any smoking gun. But we're not fighting a legal battle. Hillary Clinton's not fighting a legal battle. Republicans aren't fighting a legal battle. They're fighting a battle over whether the presidency of the United States is a power that they want to give to Hillary Clinton. And one of the questions is, who influences her and how do they influence her? And so that's why you're seeing all this reporting on this. That's why you're seeing all of this this anger around it. And by the way, as to your question about Republicans, Democrats were ready to burn down the Capitol when Tom DeLay had a foundation, and his big political donors were giving to that to get access.
That's a little housing development down in Texas.
Well, you had a thing for foster kids or adopted kids as well. Yeah.
Michael, your shot.
Well, you know, I
see corruption here. Just what do you see? Smoke and fire, or just smoke?
I see smoke. We want to try to find the fire. I think.
Okay, what's wrong? What's wrong in what you said?
I think the fact is it's sort of burning out the narrative now that there's this concern about whether or not we can trust her, whether or not she's going to be honest. You know, from my perspective, I'm looking at this now. I know what was.
What question? No, really, you got to nail this down, Michael. What is it that she did that caused you to question her honesty? What she did, not Bill Clinton. He grabbed the speaking piece and left the White House.
It's the idea. A couple of things. One, the idea that you put yourself in a position where I can question your.
How'd she do that?
By being in office and having this relationship with these governments through the foundations and the organizations that either she has an affiliation to or her husband has an affiliation to as the former president of the United States.
Okay, go back to this, Stephanie. First of all, I think everybody who has done anything to do with the Clinton Global Initiative agrees with its good work. Is there something we ought to be watching here in terms of the speaking fees? I don't understand. You said access. That covers such a multitude of opportunities. Some people like social aspect. They just like to hang around with the Clintons because they like their company.
But the access gives you the Iranian.
Yeah, go ahead. You certainly may. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, I mean, Hillary Clinton was spending 4 years as Secretary of State, watching out for the security of the country over this time period. The campaign even made it clear today that she had absolutely no involvement in the State Department's review over the sale.
Uranium deal, right?
Exactly right.
They made that point.
I mean, she has been a very, very good Secretary of State, and I think this is ultimately, and we look at this as what the voters are looking for here. This election again. I know we're going to step back, and it's going to sound corny, but the truth is, they want to talk about what's going on in their lives. And the Republican strategy here is about making it about Hillary Clinton.
Well, let's be honest. You know what they're up? They're up to crib debt. They want to knock her out before she even gets started. You know, Stephanie, you know exactly what they're going to hit her now when she doesn't have a full team ready to defend. Thank you so much. Michael, we'll revisit this.
I know we will.
Last point. What's the worst thing Hillary Clinton has done? Nail it. What's she really done wrong that you know is wrong?
I think all of this could have gone away if she just put that server on the street and let people see what's on it. Because I guarantee you a lot of what we're talking about right now will be found there.
She may be beyond reproach. It may turn out that way.
Well, that's an easy charge to make. The server's destroyed. You can't be disproven.
Well, you know, I'm just saying this is something that could have been avoided. But number two, the New York Times and Washington Post are not part of a Republican cabal. I appreciate Stephanie trying to make that linkage. Okay. But this is something of her own doing.
This reminds me of that old Irish game. Somebody dies and you always say, you know, he never liked you.
They should also...
You know, there's no way we can ever disprove what you just said.
The Clintons should step away from the foundation while she's running for president and or president. That's the clean answer.
Okay, thank you.
Put it in someone else's hands for a while.
You know how long that'll be? People will be interested in that? They're not anymore. Anyway, thank you, Stephanie Shirok. And Shirok, thank you very much. I'm trying to be nice to you because we got two big guys over here, and they seem to have teamed up. Michael Steele and Jonathan Allen.
Wish I could be there.